Hey guys, welcome to another episode of, this is actually the second episode of the Cookbook Club. Now, what is the Cookbook Club? The Cookbook Club is by BakeSpace.com. We bring our members in. Everyone here is a BakeSpace member. I think you guys have been members for, I want to say since like 2007?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I feel like just going...
I know, but
not go bust. So for those of you who are tuning in, this show, what we do is we talk about one topic. Well, actually, sometimes we kind of go a little bit off and talk about other stuff depending on what the community wants to talk about. But we try to keep it to the one topic, which is today's topic is bread making, recipes, tips, what types of bread recipes. So if you have a specific bread question, leave it in the chat room and let us know, and we'll get to it. Someone will research it or someone will already know, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. Also, one thing that makes this chat really unique is that every week when we talk about a certain topic, we are working together to create a community cookbook based on whatever the topic was for that week. So this week we have a bread cookbook we're making through our platform called Cookbook Cafe. I'm going to put a link to the cookbook in the chat room. So if you guys have a recipe you want to share, you guys are totally welcome. My name is Babette Pepe. I am the founder of BakeSpace.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, pretty much almost everywhere except YouTube. It's BakeSpace or BakeSpace TV on YouTube. I want to introduce my co-hosts. Who would like to go first? Danielle?
Okay, I'm Danielle Nichols, and I'm from Los Angeles. I have a website, food blog called Peaceful Cooking. It's at peacefulcooking.blogspot.com. And then, of course, you can find me on BakeSpace under I'm Stuff.
You know, Danielle, since you're doing Peaceful Cooking now, I can change your username to be Peaceful Cooking if you'd like.
Oh.
No, because I can do that. I have the power. I have the power.
Okay. Ooh, get your little magic wand out.
When's your birthday?
Fairy dust and get it. That'd be good.
Your
December 31st.
That's a hard
New Year's
birthday
Eve
because everyone's partying.
Yes.
You're like, let's celebrate me. And everyone's like, no, let's celebrate the world.
I know. It's all about me.
Your birthday present, I will change your username. You're welcome. Now, Monica. Oh, I can do that to you too. Do you want me to? Because you have Sea Witch. I mean, it's like, yeah. So I can change that for you as well, so that it matches all the names. Actually, if anyone's watching who's a BakeSpace member, if you want me to change your username, just send me an email at babette@bakespace.com, and I will do that for you guys, so that it all matches.
That's what you're going to do all next week.
And
that's true. But I will do it with pleasure.
And you know what? I just realized. I just changed my Twitter to Peaceful Cooking, and I think on the blab here it still says I'm Stuff, so I have to update my profile. Yeah, so my Twitter handle is now Peaceful Cooking as well. So I'm going to be sad to see I'm Stuff go.
I can't do two of the same because all your friends, I'd have to move everything. But if it's important to you, I can also say formal. I can say formerly known as. You'll be like Prince.
Yeah.
So Monica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Right. Yep. I am Monica. I live up here in Alaska. I have a baking business. I do caramels. I do carved cakes. I do cookie decorating. Just kind of whatever. Lots of foraging. Like we're going to all be talking about bread. I made like 5 different types of naturally forced jams yesterday to go on said bread. You can find me under the Muse everything, Facebook, Twitter. It's not on BakeSpace, so I'll be sending you an email to change that because I'm still under AK Monty on BakeSpace. And Akmani.
I noticed that today.
Not from Alaska, but that's all right. And so everything else, Instagram, everything is the Muse or the moonmuse.com, and you can find my blog that way too.
Cool. All right. And then did you say you were in Alaska?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I know we talked about it earlier, and I was like, wait a second. I want to make sure people know. And then Danielle's in Burbank, California. I'm in Los Angeles, California. And then Cathy, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I'm Cathy Wiechert, and I blog at the Dutch Baker's Daughter. I live in Minnesota. So in a suburb of Minneapolis.
Beautiful place.
I've been with BakeSpace since 2007 or so.
Crazy. You know, we launched in 2006 August, so you guys were pretty much right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And probably dealing with a lot of like
friends.
It was fun because there was lots of feedback that we were all doing about forums, about BakeSpace.com in general, and so it was really cool to have that baking aspect and cooking aspect type of forum, and then be in on the grassroots, the ground of it, of trying to help give ideas and look how it goes. So that's super cool.
It was super fun, especially like the wine chat. And then when Dee Dee made all those the mugs with the fondant. That's
that cake with everyone's picture on the side.
Yeah, that was so cool.
That's probably one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite memories.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely really love that.
I met some of my favorite people on BakeSpace. I mean, just all of us, you know, and more that aren't here. It's just I've met some great people
like watched my son grow up and
forever.
And your wedding. Heck,
my little wedding. My little tiny kitchen. My log cabin kitchen.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, she said, it's her favorite cake ever. I also love the fireman cake too, which was pretty awesome.
Oh, Halloween cake.
Yeah. Oh God, Dee Dee did some amazing stuff. Oh God.
Yeah, just kind of watching that.
Yep. There you go.
That's very cool. Well,
kudos to Dee Dee.
Oh, that's right. We love you, man.
We love you, man. Now if you can hear us all say it, that's awesome.
Danielle's hoping I get the pink corset out, but I don't know.
Yeah. I have to have a few more glasses.
Speaking of alcohol, what are we all drinking?
I'm drinking my signature margarita.
Is there anything special that you put in it?
But hey, you know. You know what? It's called, what do they call it? I call it a redneck margarita. But it's equal amounts of tequila, beer, Sprite, and frozen limeade.
Okay, that sounds disgusting.
It does the job.
But, you know, I have poor man's margarita I've been making lately. It's lemonade with tequila. That's it. And that
works.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Well, you know what? I don't like beer. I don't like beer at all. And I can't really taste the beer in it. It just adds an effervescence.
And then, Monica, you're not having a cocktail.
I'm having water because one of the joys of living in Alaska is that I have to drive a 2-hour windy road to the airport to take a red eye out. So I will drink once I get to the airport.
I'm doing a rum and Coke. Classic, solid. Actually, it's Diet Coke, which is almost really embarrassing to admit. But Diet Coke. Oh, rum and Coke.
What makes it Roman?
Yeah, I got a rum.
Oh, rum. I thought it said Roman Coke. Got to figure out that one. You know what? I'm going to log out and go onto the computer so I can
I'm going to get us started to talk about bread. Okay, so if I'm a novice, which I am, I'm terrible at bread. I had a bread machine. I put it in my kitchen. I looked at it for a really long time. It slowly moved lower into my cabinets. Eventually, it got to the point where I gave it to somebody, and then they tried to give it back, and I didn't even want it. I was like, "That's it." For anyone who's new to bread making, what's some advice that you guys have, like just starting off?
Well, you know, I think practice makes perfect, really, and there are some good sites you can go on to get some nice tutorials on how to begin. King Arthur Flour is a great one. They give step-by-step information on how to do it, and the recipes are just spot on. So yeah, I would just say just to dig in there and practice. And to your point, that I hate a bread machine. I broke mine. I put too much yeast in it and it exploded.
Oh no!
Plus, I don't think the bread tastes as good out of a bread machine. I think when you start working it, even though I use my KitchenAid to knead the dough, it's like you're a little bit more hands-on, and it just tastes that much better to me. And it doesn't have that weird hole on the bottom.
Yeah, and I think another thing too that I get kind of like Bob Ross on it with bread is you got to let it have its time. So I always say when I'm making it, let it get happy. Just, give it some rest. If you overknead it, just set it aside, let it rest. It'll come back. Just you want the bread to be nice and supple and not like when you pull it apart, you don't want it to just go.
Yeah, you want it to tear.
You want it, and so you just want to I always say just give things space, just let it get mellow, and leave it alone for a little bit, and then come back. And I think that's really key. A lot of people tend to either overknead or they rush it, and sometimes it just really takes a long time.
What about ingredients?
Ingredients for bread.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of ingredients.
And pretend that I know what those 4 ingredients are, or pretend that I don't know what those are. And tell me what those are so that I can pretend that I know what those are.
Flour, water, yeast, and salt.
A little sugar for the yeast.
Sometimes. You know what? I do it all the time without the sugar, and it works fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, and sometimes I use milk instead of water. Just kind of.
Right. The basics, and you can have those 4 basics and have so many different styles and types of bread come out, based on region and everything. It's crazy. But they all start with those 4.
And a lot of it is the shaping that gives it that. Mm-hmm. And so, they're all pretty much the same thing, just different rest times, different types of shaping and temperatures and stuff.
When you say shaping, you mean in the pan, or do you mean shaping? Oh, interesting.
How you shape it before you bake it.
And I don't even use a pan most of the time. I have a bread stone that goes in the oven, and I'll just roll it, like if I'm going to make rolls or, just little baguettes or anything, they just go straight onto the stone and bake.
Jane 84 says, in my experience, you must wait to double in size. No rushing with bread.
Yeah, let it get happy.
Let it get happy.
I was always really afraid of yeast, and it stressed me out because it would say, okay, so let it rest for an hour and a half or until it doubles. And when you're doing it by eye and you're freaking out, it's like, okay, is this too cold over here? Is it too drafty over here? And did it double or not? I can't really tell. It's in a bowl. Mm-hmm. So if I can't tell, I'll take a picture before and after. And when you compare those 2 pictures, you can really see how much it's exploded. But, don't use those timelines in the recipes that say, an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever as exact amounts. Don't worry too much about the heat, and the breeze and all that stuff. It'll rise eventually. You just have to let the bread tell you. But I found that taking pictures as it's rising really helps me, and I don't stress too much about it.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Also, if you're looking for a nice warm spot in your kitchen to put the bread to rise, your microwave oven is a great spot.
Or the dishwasher.
Above the dishwasher. I know my microwave is above the stove. I've got a little light underneath it, so I turn the light on, and it gives it a really nice little warm interior. And it's draft free.
Yeah, so of course. Sometimes I use my microwave as a proofing box.
Yeah,
and so I will put a mug of water in there and let it come to boil, and then you get a nice humidity going inside your microwave, and then put that in there, and it will help kind of proof it. And if it just needs a little bump, don't turn on your microwave and start nuking it, because you're just going to fry the bottom of your bread. But just using the humidity and the warmth of the warm microwave oven, it does wonders for something that's kind of a little bit stubborn.
Mama Caruso, by the way, hello, Mama Caruso 1, said, do you heat the stone? Because we had just talked about stone. Do you heat the stone before you use it?
Yes, I do. I put it in the oven when I turn the oven on, and I preheat the oven, if there's a stone in there, for about 20 minutes or so. So usually during the last rise of the bread, while it's doing the last, usually maybe about a half hour or so of the final rise, I'll start the oven with that stone in there so the stone is nice and warm. And then if I want a nice crust, I'll put a pan at the bottom of the stove and pour a cup of water in there just at the same time that I put the bread in there, and it creates a steam that helps to get that nice artisan crust going.
You're making me hungry. Hey, Cathy, it looks like you may have poor internet signal. It says you may want to go out and come back in, possibly, or just kind of write it out. Tracy G1 asks, can I substitute a sourdough starter instead of yeast, and how much should I use?
Yes, you can, because sourdough starter is yeast. It's a wild yeast. I'd have to look it up.
What does that mean, wild yeast? What does that mean?
Wild yeast is, well, the stuff that you get at the store is dried out yeast. And it's a quick action, you know, it gets the bread going and it starts rising. In an hour and a half, you've got, you know, your first rise. Wild yeast, you make it in your home. It takes the natural bacteria and everything in your atmosphere, whatever. I think that's probably not the right terminology. But with just flour and water and feeding it and flour and water on a daily basis or whatever, it creates yeast. So that's why it's called wild, and it's of slow rise. So it could take 5 hours to get your first rise for that sourdough bread. But it does create that sour flavor to it. You know, of course, it's not going to taste like the sourdough bread that's so famous in San Francisco, because, excuse me, wild yeast is different with different regions. You know, you make it in Australia, it's going to taste different than California, which will taste different than Alaska. So to replace it, I would find a sourdough recipe, because I don't remember if there's a specific ratio, which there probably would be. It's usually about a quarter cup to a half a cup of sourdough starter for however many cups of flour. But I do have recipes on my blog if you want to go to peacefulcooking.blogspot.com and do
Danielle, when you're done with the question, can you put in your URL, because I know it's .blogspot. Can you just, oh, you know what, I'll do that for you.
Yeah.
I'll do that for you.
But there's, you know, do a search for sourdough and you'll find a few different recipes on there, from just the basic sourdough bread to I made sourdough ciabatta, and takes 2 days. But it's really worth it.
Well, how do you have to plan for that? How do you have to be like, in 2 days I will have bread? I mean, isn't that kind of...
You can't say, oh, today I want sourdough bread, because you got to start first thing in the morning, let it rise 5 hours, and then work it in again and let it rise another 2 or 3 hours, and then let it bake. And then you're not supposed to cut the bread until it cools off some, because it gets all gummy inside. So it's definitely a forethought, you know, like, this weekend, I want sourdough bread, because you got to make sure your wild yeast, your sourdough starter, is, you know, very vital and active and everything, and not just kind of dormant. So you have to really feed it and get it going again. And you got to plan.
Monica, I think I cut you off. You were going to say something.
Yeah. So there, another way, when you're talking about the sour flour flavors, if you don't want to use a sourdough, or, you know, a live yeast type of thing, or just to give a bread a little bit more flavor, you can retard it in the fridge. So once it comes up from its first rise, you pound it down, cover it. Sometimes some people shape it and then put it in the fridge. Some people just put it in the fridge as one big ball, however you want to do it. But you put it in the fridge overnight, nice and covered, and it will rise a little bit in the fridge, but it develops more flavor. And I've done that up to 2 days, you know, just let it develop a little flavor. You can also take from whatever dough that you're making a fresh batch. Pull off a little bit after it goes through its first rise, then roll it in a ball, cover it in foil or whatever you want to protect it in the freezer, chuck it in the freezer, do that with several of them. And then when you do a new batch, you pull that old dough and into your batch. So you just bring it out before and let it thaw, come to room temperature on its own. And by doing that, you've kind of gone through a couple of rise and cycles, so it just kind of develops a little bit more flavor, and it adds just something a little different to your bread. And it's nothing all that terribly noticeable, but you know, it just kind of adds a little note. But definitely the retarding works really well, and it's, you know, you just put it in there and you punch it down, and it will come up real slow. And so you want to have a nice flexible top on it of plastic to allow for that. And then you bring it out and bring it to room temperature and let it go through, you know, shape it and let it go through another rise. So you let it come to room temperature, rise up, then shape, then rise.
Can I give a tip? Because this took me a while to discover this. Well, not I didn't discover it, but to find out. Because in that final rise, when you're waiting for you to be able to put it in the oven and actually bake it, it's like, when is it ready to go in? Because you don't want, if you put it in too soon, you get what they call an oven spring, and it all of a sudden rises a whole bunch, and you get these weird cracks and craters and everything in it. So to test it, to make sure it's fully risen, if you poke it with 2 fingers, the dough or your loaf of bread, if it springs back right away, it still has some rising to do. If it takes a slow time to spring back, then it's ready to go in there. Actually, I poked it, it stayed. So I baked my bread and it had these little 2-finger pokes stuck on the crust.
That's like your signature thing. That's like your.
Yeah. If you let it rise too much, then it will sometimes just kind of fall back down.
Yeah. Now, like what's a good? Oh, go ahead, Cathy.
The cell walls of the bread, if you've let it rise too much, will collapse and it'll sink. So you don't want to too much of a rise.
I never had that happen, so I never experienced that. Not that I'm that good.
I'm forgetful.
I usually put it in too soon, and I get like this really crazy loaf of bread. It tastes great, but it looks really funky. But for beginners, if it's kind of intimidating, then I would investigate the no-knead bread. So
yeah, you've had a lot of good luck with that, haven't you, Danielle?
Yeah, and actually that was what transitioned me from total fear of yeast to the nerve to actually try, like sourdough and real loaves of bread and stuff like that.
And it gives you a nice, like an artisan bread rather than a loaf of sandwich bread.
Right. Well, and there's different ways. There are so many different kinds of. There's this wonderful buttermilk no-knead bread. It's a really beautiful sandwich loaf. It's nice and soft. You just don't put the water in the oven, and you put it in a loaf pan and everything. But I think it's a really good transition, and I always fall back to it. Because you can make a whole bunch, put it in a container with a loose lid on there. You don't want it too tight because it'll explode. Because it will rise, like Monica said. But and you can keep that dough in your refrigerator for a week or 2, and just every night, if you want a fresh little loaf of bread, whether it's this big or this big, you've got it already made, and it's already risen to the initial time. So you just have to do like maybe half hour, 45-minute rise, and throw it in the oven.
Now, Danielle, when you say put it in the freezer or put it in the refrigerator, take it out, when you are making a loaf of bread where you're like, I just want like a couple pieces for myself, how do you figure out how long to cook that for?
Yeah, it's usually about, regardless of the size I found, unless you're going like huge or super tiny, it's usually between 20 and 35 minutes in the oven, probably 25 to 35 minutes, depending on the size. So I've made like hamburger buns, and of course, the big loaves, like I've given you some bread or whatever, and that is,
your bread is so good. It is so
well, what bread is
delicious. Oh my God. Now, for someone who's new to baking bread, what's a really good first recipe idea? Is it like a sourdough? Is it, what kind of bread should somebody start with?
I don't know if you guys have any ideas, but I have this one recipe that was the first one, and it was given to me from Rhonda from BakeSpace. And I have it on my blog. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a no-knead bread. But you let it rise for something crazy like 17 or 18 hours in a bowl. You take a hot Dutch oven or something out of the oven, and you literally plop it. It literally plops into that pan, pot. And you bake it with the lid on there for part of the time because that creates the steam and everything. And you take the lid off, and it's just a beautiful round loaf of bread. And it's so easy. But it's really a shaggy dough, like real spongy and sticky and everything. And you really can't go wrong with that. And so once you've been successful with that, you kind of get like, oh, I can do this, and you graduate further.
Right. There's another one that I've seen or that I've used that just you throw everything into a bowl of a KitchenAid mixer with dough, and I think you even just use the paddle because you get that shaggy dough. And it's an English muffin bread, but it takes literally a couple of hours, and you've got a fresh loaf of bread. It's very quick and it's easy and it's really good. It's a good sandwich bread too, and great toast. Great toast.
And sometimes, like if you just find just a plain white water flour recipe, yeast recipe, and do rolls with it, like small ones, then you kind of get a little feel for the rise. I mean, you have several trays of them. You can kind of like, oh, that wasn't quite long enough. That was too long. Figure out the baking time. It gives you more little bits to play with in one, and, play with, rolls, just rolling up rolls and putting them on your parchment, or do a clover leaf where you put 3 together in a muffin pan, just different things like that. But with just a very simple dough, you can always add some herbs for flavor if you want, but it just gives you more practice because you're feeling the dough more, you're just handling it more, and so you get a good feel. And like I said, if you put one in the oven too long, you're like, oh crap, next one left.
So I'm putting a link right now for plastic dinner rolls. It was so that people can get the recipe, but it was a recipe I got from Dee Dee, and I make them every year for the holidays, and they're so good. They're nice and soft and.
So, Danielle, you'll make some of those for me at some point.
Yeah.
Hey, we did get a Mama Crusoe one asks, I am drinking a peanut butter porter tonight, and I believe it would be a great addition to a bread. Any suggestions about incorporating a deep, thick beer to bread?
I'm just thinking caramels. That's all my head can go to right now.
I was just going to say, you came to mind first. I was like, Monica is going to know something here.
I'm just thinking caramels. Let's see.
There's an Irish soda bread. I wonder if that, I can't remember if that has beer in it. You can probably,
You can do about anything with the soda breads. I mean, I've added blueberries, I've added whatever, made them savory, made them sweet. But yeah, that would be a good, put that in and substitute for water.
Cathy, have you ever experimented with the beer?
I haven't experimented with the beer. I've experimented a lot with bread, but not with beer. No.
What's the weirdest thing what combination have you tried?
Well, I've done sweet potatoes. I put that in the dough. I've made a sweet potato bread, pumpkin cinnamon rolls. I've done chocolate pull-apart bread. So lots of different flavors. You can just...
Is there a key? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say the pull-apart, if you did like a monkey bread pull-apart bread, you could use the peanut butter and incorporate it into the porter into your sauce. Like reduce it down and put it in your monkey bread, Yeah.
Now, with chocolate, my question is, because I've made cupcakes with chocolate, and if I don't use the right chocolate for cupcakes, it just kind of like it just melts all inside. But like if I use Scharfenberger chocolate, it'll stay creamy and delicious, and it completely changes the cupcake. When you're making bread with chocolate, how do you keep it from not making everything just...
Well, actually, for the dough, I use cocoa. I use the dark cocoa powder.
Oh.
And so it doesn't add any more liquid to it. And it gives nice flavor.
Yeah, Dee Dee just said something. She says, I used beer before. Just get it room temperature and substitute half water or all the water with beer.
Yeah, Dee Dee does everything. She does bread, she does cakes, she does pies.
This is one of my favorite recipes from the site. It was by Crashed24. It's a Rocky Road bread. And when you said chocolate, my first thought was, I want to make that.
Oh, nice.
She has like the pieces of chocolate chips. But my thought is maybe she added the chocolate chips just before it was done baking. Like no?
On top?
Yeah.
Put it on top? No, she could put it throughout the bread.
And it'll stay.
Now, is it a yeast bread or is it a quick bread?
How would I know?
Does it have yeast in the recipe?
Here, I'll look at it.
Because there are two different breads. There's quick breads and yeast breads.
Rocky Road bread?
And quick breads are like, zucchini bread, banana bread. Those are usually a quick bread where they use baking soda and baking powder rather than yeast.
It's a quick bread.
They're denser. Mm-hmm.
So
so that's probably why she was able to put the chocolate in. Now, one thing I've learned too over the years is garlic reduces the yeast it inhibits yeast from rising. So if you're making bread and you're thinking, oh, let me make some garlic bread with garlic in the dough, you got to be very careful how much garlic to use because it will inhibit the yeast from growing.
What about savory breads? What do you guys? What are the best herbs to try? I would think rosemary.
Rosemary, oregano, thyme, dill. Oh, I love dill. I make a carrot roll with a carrot and dill roll.
Dill,
I love.
Awesome.
Do you guys remember there was a member who was making cookies? Which member was it that was making like lavender rosemary cookies? And she sent them out. And I don't know if it was just to me or if she sent them out, but by the time they got to me, they were all like smashed. But I literally licked the plastic. I was like,
would that have been like Patty or Debbie or somebody?
I cannot remember who it. Oh, Julie from New York. Maybe that's who it was.
Yeah. Didn't Julie do like caramels? Is that the right Julie?
I can't remember.
Who was it that started her little caramel company? I thought it was Julie.
Oh, that's right. She did start a caramel company. Wow, that was really early on. It was. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the holidays that are coming up because folks, Brown Eyed Baker, that was her BakeSpace name. That was Brown Eyed Baker?
Wow. I didn't know Brown Eyed Baker was part of that.
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
Was it Nadia part of BakeSpace before she went live?
Manushka was. Manushka was so cute.
Was she there Saturday?
She was supposed to be, but I forgot why she couldn't come. She went for a Food Network interview and her dog had just passed away. And she had called me up and was like, I can't do this. My dog, it's like my life. This is like the greatest opportunity ever for me. And I basically was like, you need to do what was his name? Oh my God, he's like a famous celebrity. Like from like the 50s. I cannot remember. I don't know if it was Cary. I think it was Cary Grant. He would, because he was a very shy person in general. This is totally off topic. I'm sorry about that, but it's an interesting story. He was very shy, and he would pretend that when he went to auditions that he was Cary Grant, not himself. So he would basically have to pretend and act. Yes, he'd have to go into character of what they thought Cary Grant was like so that he could go to the audition. So then I explained to her, you need to go into your audition and pretend your dog will be there when you get out. You need to go back and pretend that you are Manushka before this happened and that you're going to go and do this great audition. So she did. Great audition. She gets to the end and all of a sudden, like at the end, she's like, I'm sorry, my dog died. And they were like, what? And every single person cried in their audition.
I almost got it.
Yeah, she did get it. She was Beverly Hills, Chefs of Beverly Hills. Yeah, no, she was great. She was actually, Tess Masters with Blender Girl. I met her. She became a BakeSpace member because she was at an audition and was sitting next to a friend of mine. And he said, I know someone who does recipes. And she's like, I'm on BakeSpace. She had just joined the site like 3 days before. And it was like, what? Yeah, it was very, very, very strange. Okay, let's get back to bread. Let's talk about the holidays, guys. Now, people who are going to be trying bread making are going to be trying for the holidays. What are some recipes they should try? Obviously, the dinner rolls. We should try Dee Dee Pie's dinner rolls. But what else can they try? Is there something that is seasonal that could be kind of cool? Is there something they should stay away from?
Don't stay away from
I think Stalins are kind of nice. A Stalin, like the German or the Dutch have a Stalin, and you can you wrap a little almond paste in the middle, and maybe put, if you don't like the dried fruit, you can put in maybe some dry or candied fruit. You can put in dried fruit like cherries or raisins, golden raisins.
So for those who are like Stalin. That you spell Stollen.
Stollen.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a fruit.
I'm pretty sure I made that
bread
before, but I made it with tropical fruit.
Well, you can. Oh, yeah. There are so many varieties, but it's such a traditional holiday bread. Well, and of course, if you celebrate Hanukkah, you can have a challah with a egg bread, a nice twisted egg bread, which is really festive and not very difficult.
You know what's really fun is braiding the bread.
It is.
There's just something satisfying. You start from the middle, you braid it, and then you turn it around and you braid it so that you get an even braid. You're not pulling on the dough as you're going along if you start from one end to the other.
Oh.
And you just roll it out into these logs, 3 even strips. And it's just so satisfying because it comes out of the oven and it's all braided and beautiful and golden and everything. And you're like, wow, I did that.
Yeah, and you can take the bread and, cut it into it or layer it and put like Nutella down on it. And then twist your strips. Just don't put like a ton because it will ooze out and burn all over the place. But you can do that with any of your breads. You can, cut it in strips and layer and twist it. Do things, fill it with different things that are really good. Cinnamon roll is a bread.
It is.
And so you could, pumpkin, you can fill it with whatever you want in the middle. And that's a good, Christmas morning cinnamon rolls. Hello.
Yeah.
I love that minced meat fruit thing. What is that? Is that like date? Or what is that?
Well, traditionally minced meat is meat, but
it's not when you go to the store, yeah.
No. You can get now to like raisins and I haven't tried it. But
yeah, I don't think I've ever had it.
I like how they're like, no one wants to eat that meat anymore. We'll just keep the name, but we'll make it sweet.
It's totally different. It's not
it was sweet, I think, but there really was meat in it.
They're like, for the vegetarians. What about fruit bread? Fruit, because I know this is like a fruit cake. I mean, do people still serve that?
Yes, and I know people who love it. I did coconut rum instead of whatever the traditional one is, and did with the nuts and everything instead of the cherries. I went and got dried coconut, apricots, pineapple, like all those tropical things, and it's really good.
Yeah, if you put if you put in enough booze. Soak some dried fruit in some brandy or some
coconut
bourbon. It's a lot better than the candy fruit that you get in those that really fluorescent colored stuff that you find in the grocery store.
Yeah,
and you can incorporate that into your braids or your rolls or whatever little thing you want. That boozed up fruit would be awesome.
Booze makes everything better.
Well, that's what I do when I strain it out. I just have to, before you make it, you have to strain out all the booze, and I get a nice cup or two of that booze, and it's all flavored with all those different fruits and nuts, and oh my gosh, it makes the best cocktail.
And when we're thinking about the booze stuff, something else, and like if you're adding raisins to your bread, something that's always really good is to put them in some hot water and let them swell up for 20-30 minutes and puff up a little bit so they're not shriveled little morsels before they go in and get cooked more.
Right. It can dry your dough out too if you haven't puffed up those raisins a little bit.
Yep.
What about the water consistency? Like when you're putting something that has liquid in the bread, how do you compensate for when you actually go to bake it? Is there any change that you have to do?
Well, if it's 2 cups of water and you're going to put a half a cup of booze, then you just do 1.5 cups.
Replace.
So it's like 1 to 1. So for those who are just tuning in, I'm putting the link in the chat room to our community cookbook. This is called the Cookbook Club. Basically, we talk about one topic every week, and then we create a community cookbook based on that topic after every episode. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. If you guys have a recipe you'd like to share, please feel free. You don't have to join BakeSpace.com. You can just submit your recipe, hit submit, and it will save to our cookbook. So we're excited about that. And I should also post last week's cookbook as well. I'll do that I'll do that by the end of the show. Now, okay, so dinner, we talked a little bit about dinner. We talked a little bit about the holidays. Let's talk about things to avoid when baking bread, like mistakes, your biggest fail, when it like went crazy, so that we can all kind of learn from your mistakes and laugh. So I can.
Want a recent one?
Yes.
Like within a couple of weeks. So basically, any dough that you make, if you roll it out flat and round or not, you can make a pizza. That could be your pizza dough. And I couldn't find my baking stone. So I'm thinking, well, you get pizza at the grocery store, and they just tell you if you want a crustier crust, just put it directly on the grill, the grate in the oven. So not really thinking it through, I did. I went to check on it, and the dough with these indents in between.
It looked like accordion pizza.
It looked like I was baking tacos.
That's where you put the cheese, right?
Excuse me. Oh my gosh! So I thought, okay, I can deal with this. I'll just like slice it off the grate and just serve my pizza as tacos. But then the stuff started like dripping through. And I thought, oh my gosh! Okay, well, I have to dump this one.
Didi Pie says she can't help but think about the I Love Lucy episode with bread. Mama Caruso, I want to hear about everyone else's fails too, but Mama Caruso wants to know high altitude tips. And also, Mama Caruso, where are you located? Are you in Denver, or where are you high altitude? Do you guys have any tips? Oh, Boulder. Boulder has like the smartest people per capita. That's the only thing I know about Boulder. It's like that's where all the smart people go to live. So if I ever hear of someone and they're like, I'm going to move to Boulder, I'm like, oh, you're a very smart person. That's good. So
I live in Alaska, but I live at sea level, so I got none.
Danielle?
What? I'm sorry.
Any high altitude tips?
I don't leave the area.
I don't leave the but what would you think?
I'm like 1,000 above. I'm not at that above. Unless I went to Big Bear or Arrowhead or something. No.
You guys are useless. I just want you to know.
We're kind of bad. A couple more drinks, we'll know.
Cathy?
Okay, wait.
I have no idea. I've never lived high altitude.
Okay, I'm actually on the King Arthur
altitude.
I'm on the King Arthur Flour website because you people are ridiculous. Oh, here, hold on one second. Please forgive my utter ignorance. This is Mr. Michael D. the second. Please forgive my utter ignorance, ladies, but is this a closed community? If so, please accept my humble apology.
No, come on.
Welcome.
It's okay. So I'll tell you the format of the show. The format of the show is there's 4 of us. We're all from the same website. I'm the founder of BakeSpace.com, and these are our members. And we thought it would be cool to kind of get together and chat about a certain topic, and then we're going to make a community cookbook all together. And then we invite all of our the people who are watching and also our BakeSpace members to submit a recipe to be part of our cookbook. So it's not closed, but there are 4 people in the room, and we usually don't swap people out unless there's like a crazy question and you want to come in, and then Danielle or somebody will pop out real quick and let you come in and ask the question.
Computer. She's not going anywhere.
I'll let someone pop in when I go to refill my drink.
Oh, we'll be like, this person's much better than Danielle. Hey, I did look at King Arthur Flour. I looked at their high baking. The higher the altitude, the lower the air pressure. Now, from my friends who are bakers and who are bread bakers, what does that mean?
Longer to rise?
Lower to what?
Would it take longer to rise?
Well, this is an excellent environment for training athletes, which actually, by the way, I did high altitude in Aspen, and it kicked my butt. I was so sick. I like the inside of my body was on the outside. I was so, I thought I was going to die.
Such a Halloween character.
I never want to go to Aspen again because I was so sick. I was like, I never want to be here again. It is a difficult one for baking recipes. Baking depends on the specific interactions of several kinds of ingredients, flour, leavening, I'm sorry, I'm reading wrong, fats, liquid. To complicate things further, individual microclimates vary greatly in the mountains. So the adjustment that works for you may not work for your neighbor up or down the road. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. That would be horrible.
Mr. Michael just said fermentations.
Fermentations.
That's the pressure affects fermentations.
Oh, Mr. Michael, you're genius.
Thank you for the input.
Oh gosh,
I won't
yeah.
bake next time I go to Bake Bear.
Oh, you know what? This is actually a pretty good. This is actually a pretty good thing because they tell you specifically. There's a chart here. I'm gonna share it. There's a chart that basically goes through each thing. So baking time, sugar, liquid, and it adjusts it. And it tells you, are you at 3,000 to 5,000 feet, 5,000 to 8,000 feet? I mean, this is genius. So I can't even make this stuff up. I'm just going to share the link, and then you guys can figure that out. Okay, we have about maybe 12 minutes left. What?
That's it?
I know. An hour goes by fast. But I want to keep the people, we want to make sure that the show keeps moving. Okay, so we talked about, I want to know about the fails, though. We didn't get Cathy or Monica to talk about your fails.
Well, one of the reasons I don't like the bread machine is that I actually broke mine. I put too much, I thought, it calls for this much yeast and it'll just go quicker if I put more yeast in the bread machine. So I came into the kitchen and the dough was like, that movie, The Blob?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was and then, it took me like 3 hours to clean out that bread machine and it never worked after that.
So, that sucks.
I learned how to bake bread on my own.
But did you learn because you looked at recipes, or did you learn because you're like, oh, I should never do this again?
Well, yeah, that I learned about the yeast and the proportion of ingredients, but I did go and get some actual recipes, and it's really a lot of trial by error and actually getting your hands into it and just giving it a try. It's really a lot easier than it sounds.
Kind of get a feel for it,
Yeah.
I don't know. You just kind of
after a while, you know how the dough is supposed to feel, and even there are so many different variables and so many different things that can go wrong. But there's different flours, and the flour will affect the consistency of the dough and how much liquid you put in, and the yeast that you're using. You need to make sure that the yeast is very fresh. But you can use different flours as long as you understand the consistency and know what the dough is supposed to feel like. You can adjust the different ingredients, and
now you can always add a little bit more water. Like wheat dough will suck up a lot of moisture. And a trick that I use for adding water, I don't take a measuring cup and just pour it in. As I'm kneading, I take a spray bottle and spray it and work it in, and that way you don't just, oh crap, now too much water, now I've got to add more flour, and you don't go through this vicious cycle. You just kind of squirt it a little bit or put a little water on your hands and rub it on your dough, work that in, and do that a couple of times until you get it back up to the consistency that you want to have it at.
One trick that I learned too, and it will change the flavor a little bit and of course the color, but if you want your dough to rise a little bit more, if you're using just I add a half a teaspoon for every cup of flour of barley malt syrup.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is sweet, so that's, the yeast likes that. They're like all over the sweet and everything, but it just ensures a little bit more with full rise, but it makes it kind of a golden color, almost like it's a wheat bread, but it's not.
That's a little caramel color.
Yeah.
Any ingredients?
Monica?
Wait, what?
I want to hear about Monica's fail.
Mine is just mostly just being impatient because I get bored easy, and the supplies that I get up here aren't always, at the end of the road, aren't always the best. And what Cathy was saying about, that's where I was going to go with mine, was about making sure your yeast is fresh. I started keeping my yeast in the freezer because, I'll go to the store and I'll buy one of those big things of yeast because it's $10 cheaper than the little guy.
Right.
And then I never use it and it all goes bad. And I think one of the keys when you're starting to do yeasty breads is to let it proof. And so that's when you put the warm water and the yeast together, and you let it kind of rise and bubble up. And if it doesn't bubble up, then toss it. You can try it again. Sometimes I try it again because I'm cheap. And before I run into town and go get that stuff, because I'm usually in my jammies and sweats, and I really don't want to go into town. And so I will, and try a new one. But if you get to that stage where it doesn't proof, it doesn't get all bubbly and stuff, then you try to bake with it. And I've done it a couple times just because, like I said, I don't want to run into town and fix it. And I just bought this yeast, it seemed like, but it's crap. And that's where most of my fails has ended up with just flavor bricks.
Now I'll go to Costco and I'll get the, I was going to say something about that.
Yeah, I get that brick of yeast.
Yeah.
Is that what you get?
Yeah. But then, and I'll keep it in the fridge or the freezer or whatever, and I'll write the expiration date on the baggie. And I have never used the whole thing before the expiration date, but it saves so much money compared to buying the packets. But what I have done is like, oh man, I really want to make bread, and this expired last month, so I'll test it like Monica said, in some water, make sure it, kind of becomes this creamy, bubbly thing on top. And I have found that even though it said it expired in June, I would test it beforehand, and I was still able to use it 3-4 months after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as long as you store it correctly, it should be fine.
It should last. But if it's past the expiration date, I would rather test it and have to throw it out than to have to throw away all that flour.
Yeah, because there's no saving it. If it didn't test, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
To make it work. And so it's just kind of an exercise in futility if you continue that. So yeah, that testing's key. But yeah, I'm stubborn and cheap. So
but
sometimes
if it's not expired yet, I don't bother testing it, like the little packets of active dry yeast. I need that whole packet. So
yeah, I don't test those.
Yeah.
I think I'm lazy. That's my biggest problem. I'm always like, I'm at the grocery store and I see the bread aisle and I go, I could have that loaf right now. I could take it home. I could eat it. I can pull it apart and it's delicious. Or I can take 2 days and make my own bread.
What is a day?
Oh, but it's so good.
I know.
Start out with like a hamburger bun or a roll. I had to have one for a picture for a hamburger, so I made my own. I didn't see one in the store that was very nice looking. And you put your own sesame seeds on and your poppy seeds or whatever, black sesame seeds, and it turned out so pretty. And so much nicer than that was actually.
It's not that scary once you get into it.
It really was easy and so satisfying.
That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid now I'm gonna be like a total bread baker, where my husband's gonna come home and be like, "I'm making bread." My vision of me making bread. Well, my vision is me like being sticky everywhere. Like the dough, I can't get it off my fingers. I'm gonna have like.
You don't have enough flour in it.
Oh, you don't have enough flour. Let's talk about just some of those key first, because like if it's sticky, it means I don't have enough flour in it.
But that depends. If you're doing no knead bread, then that's how it's supposed to be. It's stickier. It's a wetter dough. But if you're doing regular, and actually sourdough bread is a little bit sticky until you get, but you can either wet your hands a little bit just down so it doesn't stick so much, or put some flour on there, depending on what bread you're doing. If you're doing a regular yeast or a no knead bread.
The water works really well on those sticky breads. It won't stick to you near as bad.
Do you guys line your pans with anything?
Parchment.
So
I don't. For the English muffin bread, I do put a little cornmeal in the
that's kind of a nice touch.
bread pan.
I've had pizza that had cornmeal in it.
Sure.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Nice and crunchy.
I do that a lot with my rustic breads. It's just, it adds so much flavor to it.
Or if you want to, because you need to put something down on your pizza peel to get so that the pizza doesn't stick. You you can use semolina flour as well. It's a little. It's not as coarse. If you use
regular flour, it burns.
I'm sorry?
If you use regular flour on there, it gets that like burnt.
Yeah, it gets burnt.
Yeah. So I'll use cornmeal or semolina.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and let me clarify. I was thinking pans, like I was still on the roll aspect for cooking. I put parchment down on the pan on the sheets, but for like a pan, no, I don't put any liner in there.
Yeah, if I'm making
like if you're doing like a loaf.
Yeah, then you just leave it. Because it will get nice and brown, like up against the heat of the pan. I don't think it'll brown as much with the parchment.
And it kind of needs to crawl up the pan. It needs to not just hit that parchment and fall right back down. It needs to kind of grab.
Mm-hmm. I just got some sourdough from San Francisco. Someone brought down for me, which was so delicious. Now, here's what I did though. I cut half of it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep eating. I'm gonna keep eating. Oh no, now I'm gonna eat a whole bunch. Now I've eaten half of it, and I gotta stop. Now I have half of a bread in the paper bag. How do I keep that soft? Because now I feel like the edge is.
You know what? Put it in a plastic bag then if you're wanting to keep it soft.
Oh.
Now, if you have a crusty loaf of bread and you sliced it, you take the cut side, put it down, cut side down on your cutting board, so that the inside will stay soft, but the outside will stay crusty. If you want it to be nice and soft, put it in a plastic bag.
Yeah, I think soft is better because the teeth, you don't want it to be like you bite into it.
Mouth trauma.
Your teeth fall out. And then you're like, oh, God, this is delicious.
Yeah.
I'll have no more teeth. All right.
I like to make a sandwich bread for my husband and I, and it makes 2 loaves, so we can't get through it very quickly. And, there aren't any preservatives, so it can get stale pretty quickly. I take an electric knife and I just slice it all up into slices and wrap it really nicely in plastic and put it in the freezer. And then just take out a few slices at a time, and it's just like fresh.
Yeah, and it takes like no time at all to thaw.
That sounds delicious. I know, Monica, you have to leave because you got to get on the road. So I was thinking we would take like 10 more minutes if you guys want, Cathy and Danielle, if you guys are still available. Sure. And we would invite anyone who wants to come in to the room to talk to us. But it has to be bread related. Bread related. So let's. I want to thank you, Monica, for joining us. It's always a pleasure. We will see you next week. Next week we're going to be doing Halloween recipes. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to post the link to next week's show in this chat room, so you guys can also subscribe to that one as well. So
and I'm going to try to join from Oregon. So.
That would be cool.
Different perspective. A different perspective. Perspective.
We should convince Dee Dee to come into the room.
Oh, I think
because the Halloween stuff.
Definitely.
We gotta put a little pressure on her. Be like, Dee Dee.
Yeah, totally.
All right, cool.
All right, guys.
Have a safe flight.
Yes.
All right, thank you guys. Bye-bye.
She's saying, "LOL, no."
You know us.
Come on, Dee Dee. You know you can do it.
There's no difference between this room and the forums. It's the same.
So we can see her.
Yeah, that's true. But we all know what she looks like.
Come on, Dee Dee.
Look at this face.
Come on.
This face has changed. Who wants to join us in the room?
Come on in. Come on, baby.
I think we should try to convince either Joe or Mike. I think it was Michael, right? Michael Thomas. Let's see who else is still here. We got Tracy. Tracy's been here the whole time. So Tracy, you're totally welcome to join us.
Oh, she's on her TV monitor, so she can't. Dee Dee can't.
Oh, she is? Oh, Mama Caruso, I'm going to follow you. I have not. Oh, here we go.
Convincing someone to come in. I'm going to refill my glass.
Excellent. Tracy, you there?
She's coming.
You may have to, if you've never done a blab before, you may have done a blab before, so I'm making assumptions. But if you've never done a blab before, sometimes up on the bar where it has the URL, all the way to the right, there'll be like a little camera icon. If you click on that, sometimes you have to select or give it permission to be able to access your camera. Oh, hey.
Oh, hi, Tracy.
Your audio. I think what we need to do is, are you on a PC or a Mac? let's see. Your audio, Tracy, you may have, oh.
What do I do with this? Yeah, well, it's a duty. The house goes.
Oh.
Oh, I will hear you.
I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think something else is on too, and I'm trying to figure out what it is.
Oh, it's like a browser window.
Yeah, it is. There it is. There we go.
That happens all the time to me. You know, especially if you had like a browser opened and then you open something else, it resets and the video just starts to play from YouTube or something like that. Welcome.
Thank you. I met you a few years ago. I'm in LA as well.
Oh.
And we met at a class where it used to be out by in Inglewood, where we made cookies, we made s'mores.
Oh, you know what is her name? The teacher.
I forgot. They went out of business. They're not around anymore.
Oh, that was so good. The s'mores.
Yeah.
That was, I brought those s'mores home and my husband's like, these are delicious. And I was like, I made these. But luckily she had pre-made all the marshmallow. That was like the only thing I could do. Oh my God, it's so great to see you. Oh. Your sound just went out. Oh no.
Baby lips.
Oh, I wish I could.
You know what, Tracy? Your sound just went out.
Oh, am I good?
Oh, yeah,
you're good now.
Yeah, I've never been on a blog before, so it's new to me.
You know what? It's new. It's pretty much, it's such a new platform. It's almost new to everybody. So you are in good company.
Good.
So are you a bread baker?
I don't do it as much as I'd like to, but I've made for which one was talking about making the bread in the Dutch oven. I did that last weekend, and I put it on a cotton cloth, which it said to do, and I was letting it rise, and apparently I didn't put enough flour, and I let it got stuck to the cloth, and then when I tried to take it apart, I plopped it into the Dutch oven, and it just went flat. It tasted okay, but it went flat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what I put mine on? Those flexible cutting boards.
Yes, I have that.
I use that so that I can just kind of like fold it and dump it in.
That's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. The recipe had said to use. I was going out of all recipes. Their little I get the magazine, and it just looked interesting to me. So it said to put it on a floured cotton, not use a terry cloth, and.
Right, turns out to be totally disastrous.
Don't those the Silpats work nice as silicone mats? Is that what you were talking about, Danielle?
No, it's like for a couple bucks. I get it at Bed Bath & Beyond, and they have different colors.
I think I've seen those.
Those ones, they're just flexible, and you throw them out after a couple months.
Right, it's plexi, like a plexi kind of thing. I have that as well.
Plastic.
I have that too, but I never throw that out. Am I supposed to throw that out?
Well, mine get like so cut up and messed up, and like, wait, I cut that too hard, and I've got like a slice through the center of it or something. That poor zucchini,
I like it because mine's white, and I have white tile on the wall. So when I put it against the wall, like you can't really see it. You almost, it's like having a little bit of a cutting board.
Is it really super thin, like paper thin?
Yeah.
Now I get the packet that has all the colors, because then I'll use the yellow one just for chicken, the red one just for beef, and then the other ones I use for all the fruits and vegetables. But it makes it really easy.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's cool. That's
well, you don't do meat, so never mind.
I know I don't do meat. You're right.
So it's not that interesting, is it?
No, I think it is. I think it is interesting because if I ever do go back to I'm not the kind of vegetarian where I'm like this. I mean, in my mind, this is forever. But one day I may change my mind, and I don't want to be one of those people where like a few years later, Tracy comes back and she's like, Babette, remember that time? I'll be like, oh no. So I do like to know those kinds of tips, because maybe somebody I know, I'm cooking for them, and it's just good to have the different.
That doesn't put somebody wants.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's always good to know. So Tracy, you've tried bread before. Are you going to be making anything for the holidays?
One of my favorite things to make, and I was going to suggest it, was panettone.
What is that? Let me look that up. Is that a fruit thing?
Yeah, it's like isn't it like a Mexican, or is it Italian or a Mexican bread? And it has the dried fruit and nuts in it. And I love panettone, but mine never comes out correctly.
That is Italian, I think.
Italian, yeah. They sell it in packages like at Trader Joe's, but your homemade bread, it's good, but the homemade tastes so much better.
That's like a fruit cake.
Yeah,
too.
Like a fruit cake. And I do love, there's a King Arthur fruit cake recipe that I love that has oranges and dried cranberries, and I've made that before, which it's kind of like a cake actually, more than really a hard fruit cake.
Is that the American style or the overnight one? Because I'm on their website now, and I
think it's American style, but it has orange juice and dried cranberries, and I think you have to soak the cranberries. I haven't made it for a couple of years, but the panettone, I've just pulled that from different sites, and I've tried different recipes, and it always seems like I don't ever bake it long enough, and it doesn't get done inside, because it is it seems to be kind of a heavier bread.
What do you eat that with? Like coffee? Is that something that like you have? What is that?
Yeah, whatever you want. You just cut a slice. You can make French toast with it. It's really good with French toast.
Ooh, that would be good.
Like baked French toast.
Yeah, that would be delicious. Oh, what about for French toast? So what kind of bread do you, if I was gonna make bread, okay, maybe this is better the question. What kind of bread can I repurpose into multiple stuff? Like if I can't eat a whole loaf myself, what is like the go-to bread where you're like, oh, well, if you make that bread, you can convert it to this, and you can make French toast, and you can do this, and then you can blah, blah, blah.
Egg bread, like a challah, a nice rich eggy bread. Makes
an egg bread.
Beautiful French toast, and it makes great bread pudding. I use stale cinnamon rolls as bread pudding. Very good, very good.
It's so weird. Why do you need to have them stale? Is it so that they...
Well, so they absorb more of the egg mixture or the liquid mixture, and it makes it a little more, Danielle's favorite word, moist.
That's your favorite word, maybe.
When you're baking it, yeah.
I have a friend.
Yeah, stale is better because it'll absorb more of the liquid.
I have a friend who made a book, and it's called like the most uncomfortable words ever, and moist is one of those words. I'm like, how is that uncomfortable? I don't understand. But I guess some people, you say that word and they're like, oh, yuck. Well, guys.
Yeah, there's just something about that, yeah.
Is it for you? You have a problem with it?
It's uncomfortable.
It is?
Because
I should get you this book.
I'm sure I would be in there several times.
I don't like it.
There'll be a picture.
They talk about that on TMZ, and they make fun of that word.
It has such a broad range of what that could pertain to topic-wise. That it's not just like well, I don't know, crispy. That's a food word. Moist is not just a food word.
That is true. And on that note, that's what we're going to close out the show today. So for those of you who are watching at home, we do have a show. Let me find our next blab. I'm going to post a link to it in the there's no blab.com. Very interesting.
No, it's still in beta mode, isn't it?
Yeah, this is still early on. Let me get the next show. We're going to be doing Halloween recipes. If you guys have any, where is it? If you guys have any recipes you want to share, we definitely want you to participate in that. That is next Tuesday. We're going to be doing a show every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Part of the show is an online cookbook that we're also going to be creating and taking the video from this chat and adding it to our cookbook. So if you go through the chat, you'll be able to see the link. I will post it one more time. And Tracy, how did you hear about the show? Did you get my email?
I've been getting your email for years.
And
then I got the email today, and I'm like, Brad, I got to join.
Good. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, are you crazy? When I saw you joined in, at first I was like, oh my God, hey, Tracy. I was like, okay, you're early, But hold on, we're going to be right back. We used to do Google Hangouts, and you'd have this whole green room where you could do all like the weird stuff beforehand, and no one would see it. But now it's like I start the show, and I'm like, hello, I'm the only one here.
Well, I was a little late. I had to go get dog food, and then I had to rush back here, so I'd be here in time.
I wasn't even here on time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's true. One of our co-hosts was not here on time, but next time we'll make that work. So next Tuesday, Tracy, you're totally welcome to join us again. Everyone who's watching the show, you are welcome. I want to thank my other co-host, Monica, who had to leave. She's on a flight heading back to go see her mother. Kathy, please stay warm from the Minnesota chilly winters.
You said some of it here. It's
yes,
please.
It's perfect here right now.
I'm dying.
And Danielle also from Los Angeles. And then Dee Dee, it's 9 here. I think I could get a loaf done by 12. That's hysterical. So we're going to try to convince Dee Dee to join us on the next show for sure. So thank you so much for joining. If you guys have any questions, BakeSpace.com is the site we're all members of. If you want to join, you're totally welcome. If not, but share the chat, and also join us next Tuesday, because we will be talking about Halloween recipes. And then you can only program Blabs in advance a few times. So we'll just start subscribing to us, and you'll see when our next shows are up. So we will see you guys next week. And
hey,
what?
Did you put the link to the last week's?
Oh, the link to last week's. Hold on a second.
The show, but the
cookbook. Hold on a second. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so this is we had a squash chat last week, and here is the cookbook that we made. So basically, it's an online cookbook, and it also gets converted into our iPad app as well. But it's a collection of recipes that we make together, and we add it to the cookbook. So if you guys have a recipe you want to share, make sure I will post a link to this week's cookbook. And then next week, we'll be doing a Halloween recipe. So if you have your Halloween recipe ready, stay tuned. On Tuesday, you will be submitting it. So I guess that's it, guys. I hope you have a good week.
You too.
We will see you again on Tuesday.
Okay.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye. See you later. And thanks to everyone who watched the chat. We're going to be following and making sure we follow everyone and subscribing to you guys, too. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.